before the government for necessary action. I thank the Secretary General and the team for the wonderful assistance they have given to this center over the years. And particularly, I appreciate the President and the Vice of this 53rd session of this conference for giving the opportunity to this center to present at least our own activities in respect of the year under review. It is the pleasure of this center that will grow to new heights of heights. I thank you so much.
I thank Honorable Skatari for his informative report on the activities and the situation of the Lagos Regional Center for International Commercial Arbitration. Thank you, sir. Now I give the floor to Professor Datuk Sundra Raju, Director of the Kuala Lumpur Regional Center for Arbitration. You have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, can I use the computer? I have a PowerPoint presentation.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. President, Your Excellency Secretary General, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of presenting my fourth report since I joined the center in 2010, and I have actually circulated a detailed report of the activity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some of the issues that we have dealt with. And for just as a start, we do four things at the center. We do mediation, we do arbitration, we do statutory adjudication, and we also do domain name dispute resolution. So there are four types of dispute resolution arrangements that we have within the center. It's just beyond arbitration because we now call ourselves an ADR center, although it's still an arbitration center. We call it an alternate dispute resolution center. Number of cases. I think last year was a bumper year. We had, I think never in our history, a number of cases. We had 156 cases, out of which 128 was domestic and international 28. Now it's interesting that one of the drivers of our center has been actually our domestic market, simply because our domestic market is so huge. There's so much building activity, there's so much economic activity going on, there's so much dispute resolution provisions that are required that we are able to actually provide it. One of the things that I was asked to do when I was first appointed as director was I was told to bring back the disputes, Malaysian disputes, that are going out of Malaysia back to the country. I think we have succeeded so far in doing that. Now I think Kuala Lumpur is in a very, very challenging environment. To the south, we have Singapore, a very good and well-regarded international arbitration center, including dispute resolution, statutory adjudication, mediation. Then you have Hong Kong further up. The three centers actually are competing with each other. So Kuala Lumpur is now joining that triangle to compete. So we have also the Korean Commercial Arbitration Board, very active now. Korea has become very, very active. And of course, the biggest arbitral body in the world, where the most number of arbitrations in the world being done, is in China. And China, CTEC is the biggest arbitral body. So I think the the movement towards Asia is there. And so we have taken advantage of it. And what we have is 4 products. It's very important when you actually have a center to have the right products, because your products is the one that people will use to, your customers will use to actually resolve their disputes. And we have revised all the rules last year. That was one of the periodic reviews that we do. And what we did was, when we revised all the rules, we took the opportunity to look at the other, our competitors and our fellow centers, what they were doing, and we actually adopted many of the items. In fact, some of it we innovated. So first thing is, of course, we have our main set of rules, which is the Kuala Lumpur Regional Center for Arbitration, KLRCA rules, as revised in 2013. And like the other centers, it is based on the UNCITRAL arbitration rules. And we put on the KLRCA arbitration rules, which modifies the UNCITRAL arbitration rules. We take on a scheme of a tariff fee arrangement, and then we market it as a set of rules. The advantage of doing such a thing is that the main set of rules is a very well regarded and widely used rules, which is the UNCITRAL arbitration rules. And when we modify it based on the environment around us. The second one we have is the fast track rules, because some arbitrations, people don't want to go through the main type of arbitrations, which take a longer time, maybe a year and a half, sometimes 2 years. They want something fast. So when you want something fast, we have to do a set of rules for that. And the rules that we have come up with is called the fast track rules. The arbitration must complete from the date of the commencement in 160 days. Now, the fourth one is the mediation rules. We revised our mediation rules last year, and we threw away the old set of rules, which was based on the UNCITRAL conciliation rules. In fact, I went to UNCITRAL and I asked them whether they were going to revise their rules. And they said, no, they're not going to revise the rules, because it took 4 years to revise the arbitration rules after 1976. So they said to do another exercise like that, it's going to take a lot of resources. So what we decided then, we wrote our own set of rules, and in 2013. And finally, we leveraged on Malaysia's strength, particularly in the finance, in Islamic finance. We are one of the leading proponents of Islamic finance. In fact, Bank Negara, our central bank, has a task force together with the Security Commission, and we are the biggest issuers of Islamic bonds and Islamic financial instruments. So what we have done is that we provided a dispute resolution mechanism for the in the name of the I-arbitration rule. And these I-arbitration rules is based again on the UNCITRAL arbitration rules as modified by the KLRCA rules. And what it does is that it provides a method to deal with Sharia disputes, Sharia issues, when it arises, let's say, in a commercial dispute. So, and we won a prize for innovation in 2012 for this particular product. The main things, the changes that we made, I'll just go through very fast. We had interim relief. We looked at emergency arbitrator. We clarified the seat of arbitration. We looked about opting out. The Malaysian Arbitration Act is an act that was done in 2005. It has 2 parts to it. One that deals with domestic arbitrations, and the other is international arbitration. What we decided is that if you come under the center, we will treat all arbitrations as international arbitrations, so that there is a commonality. So we opted out, using the rules, we opted out of Part 3 of the Act. The Arbitration Act in Malaysia is silent about pre-award interest, so we provided for it in the rules. We strengthened confidentiality provisions, because there was a movement around the world to deal with confidentiality in arbitration. Some institutions say, like Singapore, said that they will actually publish redacted awards. Other people say that they maintain the confidentiality provision. And what actually has come about from that is that we decided as a policy issue that we will emphasize on confidentiality. That's what the business person wants. That's what people who arbitrate want, because they don't want people to read about their dispute, although redacted. People will identify who is actually fighting over something. Then we also, I need to have a drink. We also re-looked at our fee structure. And what we did was we re-looked at Hong Kong and also Singapore, and we made our fee structure 20% less. There's a reason for it. I mean, we just didn't say we do 20% because we do 20%, it is less. It is actually the cost of doing business in Malaysia. The ringgit is relatively weaker compared to the Singapore dollar or the Hong Kong dollar. So we looked at the parity of buying, and then we structured the fee structure to 80% of that. So what we are saying is that if you come to arbitrate in Malaysia, in KLRCA, you are going to get the same arbitrator. I give you all an example. I have a situation where I have an international tribunal that's sitting, Lord Hoffman, Teresa, and Professor Robin, UK, Hong Kong. They are sitting on the same dispute for less fees. Because this is what we say, if you're on our center, you can accept the fees. Of course, you can negotiate out of the fees, but they are prepared to come and do it. So it's interesting. A lot of people say that arbitrators will only do things because, unless they are foreign arbitrators, international arbitrators, unless they are paid very highly. But I think most of them, they want to actually have a penetration into the market. So they will come and do that. So we also looked at procedure under the I-arbitration rules. One of the issue of the I-arbitration rules that we had to deal with was the New York Convention. The New York Convention, which is signed by 150 countries now, actually allows the enforcement of foreign arbitral awards in various jurisdictions. So it is the only international form of enforcement of decisions which involve contract or whatever it is. So by a tribunal. Court decisions cannot be enforced because there's no reciprocal, unless you have a reciprocal arrangement. So we decided that we have to deal with the Sharia issue in a way that will be acceptable to the international community. And so we came out in Malaysia. I think the Central Bank and the Securities Commission, they're quite far-sighted. They set up what is called the Sharia Advisory Council in both commissions, some to deal with the capital market, some to deal with the financial instruments. So what we did is that we latched on to the Sharia Advisory Council of both the, by law in Malaysia, but we introduced another element which, under the UNCITRAL rules, allows the appointment of expert. So we said there can be a Sharia expert. So, and that will be by the arbitral tribunal itself. So I think what we did was we dealt with the issue of delegation. One of the problems of the New York Convention is that it says that arbitrators cannot delegate their power to a third body to make a decision which is binding on them. And that, I think, was the real thing that we had to deal with. But again, we had to actually deal with the issue that we have to give recognition to the concept. So what we have done is that in the I-arbitration rules, we treat the Sharia Advisory Council's opinion, it could be a fatwa, as an opinion. So I think in that way we are able to actually, that is something that the international community could actually understand it. And that is what made us win that prize for innovation. So I think what they want is that they want to allow it. So I think when you look at how arbitration is done, they deal with it like foreign law. So I think we use the same concept, which is actually a very simple concept, but it's acceptable, is whether it can be done. So we have done that, and then again, which is the Sharia Advisory Council? Let's say if in Iran, you will not accept a Sharia Advisory Council in Malaysia because it's a different persuasion. The jurisprudence, the school of jurisprudence is different. So we say that it should be, two parties should choose. If the parties cannot choose, then the arbitral tribunal will choose based on the rules. So we have passed to that, and as I said, we have the SAC, the Sharia Advisory Councils. We have various acts that have already been amended to deal with this. So there is recognition. We latched on to that. We also had to deal with the issue of late payment charges, interest, because it's haram in Sharia to have interest charges. So, but we had to deal with it. But the concept was dealt with, I think, universally by the Sharia Advisory Council, and they dealt with the idea of basically what they call a compensatory approach based on actual loss, and then they also a late payment penalty. We wrote that into the rules. We said that the arbitral tribunal will consider this way of doing it. And so, and then we also tied it back to the Islamic money market, Islamic interbank rate. So I think we made it as practical as possible to use it. That's the changes that we did to the I-arbitration rules. The fast-track rules, basically we made it faster. We had a lot of issues that people could not keep with the time. When you say do things fast, people say, yes, looks very nice, but when they try to do it, they all ask for extension. So we had to deal with that. So, the flexibility and the power of the center to actually deal with an issue when somebody does not follow it, how to give extension so that the validity of the award is not affected. Mediation, I brought in an expert from outside, from Australia. I don't know, I'm not an expert on mediation. When you are not an expert, you bring an expert. You use somebody else, and as long as you can understand what he tells you is the way, and then you ask people. And so we came out with our mediation rules. We have already 2 cases, which quite successful. It's a very straightforward method. The important thing about the mediation rules is I changed the fee structure. The fee structure in the old mediation rules were too low. So it didn't work. So we changed the fee structure, made it higher so that we can use international mediators. Comparatively, I did mention, if you actually look at the various centers, for a dispute of 10 million USD in international arbitration, ICC will be about 173,000 US for the tribunal. The arbitrator gets paid. And then SIAC about 154,000, Hong Kong International Arbitration Center about 144,000, and we have pitched it at about 115,000. So I've said that, but this is some of the things, but the reason why we are saying we're not competing, we are pitching it to the parity of the dollar, of the ringgit. That is the most important thing. What is our economic strength or the cost of living? Now, one major change that occurred this year, but it was already going on last year, was a new act that came into being, and KLRCA was named as the authority in it. It is the Construction Industry Payment and Adjudication Act, and this act recognizes statutory adjudication in Malaysia. There are 5 jurisdictions now that have statutory adjudication: the United Kingdom, you have Australia, you have Singapore, New Zealand, and Malaysia. It is actually to deal with the issue of the construction industry. Half my arbitration cases are in construction. So one of the main problems in the construction industry is payment disputes. Late payment, no valuation, and because of that, the project stops. What I think what we came out, the legislators and the policymakers, they came out with what is called the CIPA, Construction Industry Payment and Adjudication Act, to provide a quick and interim, what we call rough and dirty method of resolving the disputes, where the dispute must be resolved within 100 days, and there is a temporary finality. Pay first, argue later. That means when you get that decision within 100 days, you must pay the money. And then if you disagree, then you go to arbitration or you go to court, but you pay first. So I think that's we the law was actually quite broad. We set up procedures, and we also set up rules to make it, to work it out in detail. We did many road shows all over the country. We organized a number of conferences. We are also doing courses to teach users how to draft a claim and how to defend a claim. And we look at it by doing a practical, we take a practical, I normally don't do it, but we organize it, but we get the experts from outside, our adjudicators and all these things, and we work through a problem from start to end. At the present moment, the center, KLRCA, has been named as the Adjudication Control Authority. We are supposed to appoint, we are supposed to train, we are supposed to also come out with different kinds of activities that keep the competency levels in the know. So we have about 400 adjudicators. This 400 adjudicators was before the Act came into being. The Act came into force on the 15th of April this year. But before that, we already got 400 adjudicators ready, and we have a code of conduct. If you go into the website, the KLRCA website, which is, I think, the window to the world, we have everything there. You can see all the things are downloadable, and we have explained very clearly what are the rules and all these things. We have new areas. We are looking at I-arbitration. This is where we are actually starting to do the road shows. We are talking to various people. We are working with Bank Negara, and we are also training specialist arbitrators how to deal with it, because you have to develop that kind of skill. Then one of the new areas that we are looking at is sports arbitration. Sports arbitration is very, very big in the world now. When you have the Asian Games, the SEA Games, the Olympics, you have all kinds, even football, it is very, very big. Asia has not been taking part in sports